Hey everybody, Aaron Counts, Sage Dynamics. Today we're going to talk about the reloads on the rifle, the two methods I teach, and why I teach. Now, every instructor out there has their own approach to the management of the controls on the rifle, be it the sling, the safety, the bolt release, the optics, the sights, everything. They all have their own unique experiences that they bring to the table when they're considering how they want to orchestrate the curriculum, and they'll base collective knowledge from everyone across the world who uses this weapon system, lessons learned, what to do, what not to do, and then their own personal experiences, and they'll create a curriculum and they'll teach from that. Some people only teach one way, they teach it as the way. Some people teach multiple ways, and they'll give you the pros and cons of each, which is kind of where I'm at, and then some people just say, do it naturally. Well, operating the weapon, there's nothing really natural about it. Most of it's learned. Obviously, we have control of our motor skills, and we can function the weapon once we learn how to operate its controls, and that's fine, but there are some advantages to reloading in certain ways versus reloading in a natural way when there's things that you might not consider. Remember that the lowest level of education is memorization. So if you're memorizing a skill, it behooves you, and it definitely benefits you more to learn what the context of that skill is, why it is the way it is, where it came from, or when it might not be the best thing to do. When it comes to reloading the rifle, you have an emergency reload, and then you have a tactical reload. The tactical reload is preferably a retention reload. We want to get that magazine out. We want to store it if we can. If we drop it, we just let it go because we got things to worry about. And then we put another full magazine in. So in that situation, there's no bolt release to mess with. It's just half full mag out, mag in, good to go. The actual function of the rifle, how you control the rifle, can be done in two different ways, the two different ways I teach. The first method I teach is gun in shoulder. It's basically you're engaging, the gun goes dry, you recognize it either through you're familiar with that feeling of that bolt locking to the rear, or you may take a peek, see the chamber's open, you see the follower, you know the gun's empty, hit the magazine once. The mag doesn't drop, you strip it. You purchase your magazine from wherever you happen to store them. I use a beer can grip. I don't like the index grip. A full hand grip, and then it's straight into the gun. Now, I'm keeping the gun up, I'm keeping it in pocket. Magazine in, bolt release, support hand back on the weapon. What's beneficial about reloading in that way? For me, reloading in that method allows me to keep the gun oriented at my threat, and it keeps my eyes further up. If there's an atypical problem with the gun, quick release. If there's an atypical problem with the gun, say the mag doesn't line up right, or there's a lot of stress going on, I can look down and see what the issue is and still have my threat in my peripheral vision. At that point, I can fix it, get the gun up, hit the magazine, hit the bolt release, and get the gun back into the fight. Now, my second method that I teach for reloading is very dependent on the person's occupation. If they wear body armor, this might be something that they'd be more interested in, or maybe not. It's very body type dependent, very length of arm dependent, very weapon dependent, but it's another option that I really, really like. It doesn't differ too much from staying the in-pocket shoulder reload, but you're engaging the threat, the gun goes empty, same thing, magazine release, the mag doesn't fall, you strip it, you then bring the gun out of pocket and give it a tilt. Why? It's a little more ergonomic for your hand to come in like this versus up like this. So it goes straight into the gun, release, gun back in pocket, and immediately onto the threat. Is that slower? Relatively speaking, yes, because you're bringing the rifle out of the pocket of the shoulder. You're rotating it out as such, and in order to get the gun back in the fight, you have to come back down. Some people take the gun way out of pocket like this, bring it in close to the body. I don't really care for that because it's longer to get the gun back in there, and I don't think the range of motion gained or the short distance gained is worth the risk of bringing the gun this far into pocket. It's much easier for me to just rotate slightly out of shoulder, perform my reload, and go right back onto my threat. What's beneficial about that method besides the ergonomics? Really nothing. But again, it keeps the weapon in your peripheral vision or directly in your line of sight and allows you to perform a pretty quick reload. Depending on how well you practice it, you can probably do both reloads at around the same speed. But again, this method does bring the gun out of pocket. It takes your eyes off the optic. It takes the gun technically out of the fight because it raises the muzzle off where your potential threat may be. Alright, so a question I've got quite a few times. I've heard it in rifle classes, and I've also gotten it in emails and things like that. Do I put the safety on when I perform my reload? No, I don't. I have an expectation of using the weapon. The ammunition has run dry. I'm reloading the weapon with an expectation of using it as soon as that magazine goes in. Now, the situation may change. My threat may disappear. Something may happen. But I'm not going to put the weapon on safety because I don't see an advantage to it. I really don't. If my hands are on the gun, if the gun is under my positive control with an expectation of use, I don't see anything gained by putting the safety on. It's really no different than a handgun. Obviously, all modern handguns have different safety features than the AR platform does. That has internal safeties. The Glock has a trigger safety. Other striker fire guns have trigger safeties. However, my hands are on it. It's in my control. My two main safeties are trigger finger placement, where I'm putting my finger. It's not on the trigger unless I'm going to fire. And where I'm pointing my muzzle. Safest direction possible at all times. I don't really see how that's any different than the rifle. If my hands are on it, expectation of using it, safety's off. If my hands are on it and I'm having to do an atypical task, safety's on. If my hands come off the gun for any reason, say for a transition or to clear a malfunction or to navigate an obstacle, move from explosive movement from cover to cover, safety's on. But anytime the gun's in use or I have a high expectation of using the gun, I'm at a low ready, I'm at a high ready, safety's off. Alright, so these are just two methods to reload the rifle. There's a lot of different methods out there. Some of them vary slightly, some of them vary greatly. And then there's other concerns such as do you put the safety on, do you leave the safety off when you're performing your emergency reload. There are definitely a lot of other methods out there. You might already use a totally different method. These are the two methods I teach. I like them a lot. I think they have really good economy of movement. I think there's pros and cons to both methods. The big pro to staying in the shoulder is obviously getting the gun back in the fight sooner and staying on threat. The con to that one is ergonomics are a little more difficult because of just the natural torsion of your wrist is this, not this. The other method is great because it follows that natural torsion of the wrist, that natural position of the wrist. It just goes right into the gun. The bad thing is it does kind of block a little bit of your peripheral. Not really too much, but it does. And obviously the factor of coming out of pocket, so it's going to take me slightly longer to get back in the fight. All right, the greater your proficiency on your reload method, the faster you are able to get the gun back in a fight no matter which method you use. So there are pros and cons to both methods. There's other methods out there. My personal feeling is it should be as natural as possible. If a student comes to one of my classes, a shooter comes to one of my classes, and they're already performing a reload method, even if it's something I've never seen before, and they're proficient with it and it's fast, I'm not going to fix them. I'm not going to change them. I'm going to go by, I'm going to say good job, I'm going to ask them maybe where they got the technique. Maybe I might adopt their technique, give them credit, start teaching. I learn from my students just as often as I learn from other instructors. I mean, there's a lot of great knowledge out there. Nobody comes to the range completely devoid of information. So if you're looking to increase your economy of movement, or you're looking for another reload method because maybe the one you're using just isn't working for you, or if you want something you can practice easier, these are just the two methods I teach. And as with everything else, these are just fundamental skills on the gun. Nothing super high speed, nothing super sexy. I'm able to shoot in here because I'm using simunitions. I wanted to take this to the range, but just wasn't happening this week. So I hope people don't mind. There's no dynamic GoPro or actual live fire of the rounds being fired. I figured since it was general weapons mechanics, nobody really mind me using the simunitions to demonstrate what I wanted to do. But obviously, if you have any comments, leave them in the comments box. If you have any questions or anything like that, something paragraph form, or you just want to shoot me an email and ask me to re-explain something like that, I can definitely film an in-depth later if somebody didn't quite understand something or anything like that. If you'd like me to go over handgun methods, obviously that's something I could do, although I'm pretty sure I've covered it in the past. I could always cover it again. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week. I'm Aaron Callis, Sage Dynamics, training quarter. Thanks for all your help, bro.